Okay, I'm going to show you how to make a flat cap using, and this will be an adult size, and I'll tell you this right now, if you really want to do an adult size in this particular loom, which is a 72 peg 3/8 inch gauge loom, you'll want to go with a size 5 yarn, and it's a little bit above a worsted size yarn. If you go with a worsted yarn, you will get basically a toddler size, so you know. And this is a real general concept, and once you get the idea of how easy this is going to be, you can adjust it to any loom you want. So let's get started. I am using Lion's brand Unique yarn in Moon Shadows. So if you like this yarn, which it looks pretty, I think it'll work out good, that's what I'm using. Okay, how this works. You take any loom, okay, and what I would suggest doing is measuring how wide you want your brim to be. And normally you want it to cover the face area. So, for instance, those are my sides, and I'd say that's what's going to cover my face area. Now, that looks like that's going to be about 6 from the ends. What I want to do, and typically if you're working with a 3/8 inch gauge, it's going to be either 6, or if you're going to work with the one that's the next size up, if you're going to work with the 80 peg 3/8 inch gauge, it's going to be 7 or 8 pegs, doesn't matter, 7 or 8 pegs in. With this one, it's going to be 6. And the thing is, we're going to be starting off with the bottom part of the bill first. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to skip however many pegs, and it'll say in the pattern how many pegs you'll want to skip. So on this one, I'm going to skip 6. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which means I'm going to start on peg 7, and I'm going to cast on. There's 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, okay, once you get up to about 20, because when you divide the loom in half, and this is a 72, so it's going to be 36. Okay, there's 36. Count that as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 4 more to do. Okay. So here you go, you've cast on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So we've cast on 24. Okay. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to E-wrap all the pegs we just cast on. Now this is for a smaller adult. You want to use the 80 peg 3/8 inch gauge if you want to do an actual larger adult. And again, once you get the general idea of these steps, it's really not hard to follow how to go about this. Okay. Now, we're going to do a series of wraps and turns, which is what this pattern pretty much is. So what you're going to do is you're going to E-wrap until just before the last peg on the other side. Okay, there's your last stitch. And you're going to stop there. Toss all the loops over. Okay, then you're going to wrap and turn the next peg, and you're going to E-wrap all the way over until just before the last stitch. You're going to stop there. There's your last stitch. Go ahead and toss the bottom loop over. Now don't touch that wrap and turn on the end. Go ahead and push all these down. Okay, wrap and turn the next peg, E-wrap until just before your last wrap and turn. So there's our last wrap and turn. We're going to stop here. Okay. And there's that stitch there you're going to be wrapping and turning next. Go ahead and toss the loops over. I'm going to need to loosen up my E-wrap. Wrap and turn the next peg, and to loosen up your E-wrap, if your E-wrap, you find your E-wraps being too tight, you wrap them individually for a couple of rows real loose, and you'll have it. So you're going to stop and you're going to do the same thing on the other side. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be continuing doing this wrap and turn until we're down to 14 for this size, and it's going to be 16 if you're doing the 80 peg. So we're going to stop just before that last wrap and turn, and we're going to wrap and turn the next peg. And our E-wrap should be nice and loose now. So wrap and turn, and then E-wrap your way over and stop just before the last wrap and turn. And you're going to continue to do this until you are down to, here's your last wrap and turn, 14 on this, 16 on the 80. Okay, I have my wraps and turns set up between my 14 pegs. So here you see the wraps and turns on from this side. And then you see the wraps and turns on this side. And then you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. See? That's what I meant by 14 pegs, next loom up, 16 pegs. Now we're going to start adding our wraps and turns back in. So there is our bill. We're going to do the other half of the bill. So what you're going to do is you're going to E-wrap 15. And by E-wrapping 15, you're going to add your first wrap and turn back in over on this side. Like that. Then you're going to E-wrap 16, and then 17, 18, 19, and so forth until you have no more wraps and turns left. So go ahead and pause the video and do the one at a time. Add your wrapped and turn back in each row until you don't have any left, like I'm doing here. and then we will go from there on completing the bottom bill. Let's go ahead and pause the video and add your wraps and turns back in one at a time with each row. Okay, we have completed our bottom bill area, and so what we're going to do now is we're going to bring our original cast on loops back. So that's going to be our first one there. And you should see them real easily. See, there's the next one. There's the next one. It should almost be like a hole, see? And there's the next one. You're going to bring your original cast on loops back. If you've made a brim before, this should be fairly easy to you. And you may not have one for the last one, but that's okay. You want it for most of them. And so there is your front bill. And it's the bottom one. So what we've just done is we've just completed this section here. Now what we want to do, and where you should have ended, is on this side, so that what you can continue to do is go in and cast on the rest of the pegs. So go ahead and cast on the rest of the pegs all the way around. Okay, just cast on all our pegs now. And what we're doing here is we're doing this area right through here, which is your separation. You'll see it quite easily. These rows through here, which separates the top half of the hat. It's kind of like the band that goes around. And so what we want to do, so that it doesn't curl, is we want to E-wrap 2, purl 2 all the way around. So there's E-wrap 2, then purl 2. You're going to purl those stitches together on your brim section. Like that. So what you're going to do is you're going to continue to do this E-wrap 2, purl 2 all the way around for a total of 5 rows if you're doing this loom. 6 rows if you're doing the next loom up. So go ahead and pause the video and continue doing the rib stitch of E-wrap 2, purl 2 all the way around for a total of 5 rows. Okay, so there's our E-wrap 2, purl 2. As you can see, all the way around for 5 rows. Now we need to do our second brim, which is going to sit on top. So this section here. And what that entails is basically repeating the exact same thing that you did here, but you're not bringing the cast on loopings back up. So let's just get you started. So you're going to E-wrap over 24. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. And I'm going to stop at 23 because I'm going to need to wrap peg 24. Let's go ahead and toss those loops over. Wrap and turn the next peg, and then you're going to E-wrap over 22. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Because we're going to be wrapping and turning the next peg. Yeah. We're going to be wrapping and turning the next peg. Okay, wrap and turn, and at this point you're just going to continue exactly like you did with the first brim. You're going to work down to 14 single stitches between your wraps and turns, or 16. And then you're going to get it down to there, and then you're going to work it back up to no more wraps and turns. And then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how to do the rest of the hat. For the most part, this hat is knitted and flat. There are very few rows that are actually knitted in the round. Stop just before the last wrap and turn. Okay, so go ahead and repeat what you did with your first brim here, up here, and get it back to where you have no more wraps and turns, and you should be ending over here. Okay, we've completed our second brim, which you can see that indentation right here, and it'll show up more when we start to work the rest of the hat. So here's the trick about working the rest of the hat. You're working back and forth, adding a peg in at a time. One peg, one peg, one peg, one peg, one peg. And you keep doing this until you're over here and you've met up. Your sides have met up. And that's how you do the main part of the hat. So let me show you how to get started with that. So this is my last peg. This is my 24th peg. And I'm going to wrap and turn it. And that's going to give me the marker that that's the next peg I need to wrap on my way back over here. So I'm going to wrap this all the way over to my first peg. There's my first peg, and you'll see that little hole there. And what I'm going to do is wrap the next one. So that should have been 25. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and toss all those over. Okay. Now we're going to wrap and turn the next peg. That lets us know that's the next peg we're going to be adding in. Alright, let's go ahead and E-wrap our way back over. So consider that wrap and turn as a marker for the next peg you need to E-wrap on the way back. So there's our last wrap and turn we did, so we're going to toss both those over. And then go ahead and toss the rest over. And don't touch that wrap and turn. It tells you when you need to wrap the next. That's your marker. Okay. So you're going to wrap and turn your next peg. So there was your last one. So you're going to wrap and turn that next peg. And then you're going to E-wrap over. So that tells you that's the next peg you need to stop at on the way back. And as you might be starting to see at this point, this is how this is going to work. You're going to be adding a peg in on each side with each row until you meet up on the other half of the loom. And this is how you do it. Okay, there's my wrap and turn. So I'm going to wrap that one, toss all the loops over. And don't touch that wrap and turn. It tells me where I need to stop at on this next row. Okay, wrap and turn the next peg. You wrap all the way over. Here's your last wrap and turn. You wrap it, toss the bottom loop over, and you're going to continue doing this until you meet up right back here. And then we will go from there. So it works with any loom. It doesn't matter which one you're doing. You're going to add a single peg back in with each row. And the wrap and turn tells you which one you need to go to until you meet up here. Okay, I have gotten myself to a point you can see here where I'm fixing to join these, and you see where it's been slowly attaching the whole way to the 5 rows that you've done. Here's what the hat looks like so far, and while it may look a little funky, it'll look right once we close up the back end. So I've done this, and now what I want to do is go in and just E-wrap 5 rows. If you're doing the 80 peg, you're going to do the same number of rows you did for this little band here. So I think it was 6. So that's after you get done to here, then you're going to do either 5 or 6 more rows or something along those lines. And then you can do one of 2 cast offs, and I will go over that. Okay, so pause the video and E-wrap that many rows. Okay, I've done my 5 rows, as you can see here. Now it's time to close up the back. There's a couple of options. I did on this one a Kitchener bind off. And what that means is I'm going to take, here's the front of the hat, here's the back of the hat, divide those pegs in 2, lift up one side of those pegs using a stitch holder, place them on the other side, and do the Kitchener bind off. If you want to do that method, it'll make for a smooth top. You will have 2 points to contend with. What I like to do, shove them in to the middle of the hat. As you can see, they add a bit of a dimension. This is one of the ones I was working on, but instead of it being in the middle of the hat, it's going to be back here, which is going to make a little more sense to have that indentation. So if you want to do that method, I will put the link right up here for the Kitchener bind off and how to lift up and move over. There's a lot more pegs to do with than on a sock, and so it'll be a little more tedious to do, but it's definitely a real nice way to finish this hat off. But I'm going to do a simpler method for those who don't want to do that complicated. I'm going to do the double decrease drawstring cast off. So I'm going to show you how to do the double decrease drawstring bind off. What you're going to do is you're going to E-wrap that first peg, toss the bottom loop over, move to the next peg, toss the bottom loop over, E-wrap the next peg, toss the bottom loop over, move to the next peg, toss the bottom loop over. Gonna do this all the way around. E-wrap, move, toss the bottom loop. Basically, you're E-wrapping every other peg. Now, you have seen this, I'm sure, this first step. It's great and all, but I don't think it does it enough sometimes, particularly when you're working with a lot more pegs and stitches. But you should have half the number of stitches that you started with when you're done with and here's our last one. Okay, we've just tapped our stitches. So every other peg should have a stitch on it. That's our first set of decreases. That's what makes it the double decrease. We're going to go in and do that same process, but we're only following the pegs with stitches on them. So here's our second decrease row. So you're going to find the next stitch with the next peg with a stitch on it. You're going to E-wrap it, toss the bottom loop over, move to the next peg, toss the bottom loop over, E-wrap the next peg, toss the bottom loop over, move it over to the next peg, toss the bottom loop over, E-wrap the next peg, toss the bottom loop over, move it over, toss the bottom loop over. Same process, you're just following the stitches rather than the pegs. So you're E-wrapping, moving to the next peg with a stitch, tossing the bottom loop over, E-wrap the next peg with a stitch, move it over to the next peg with a stitch, toss the bottom loop over. You're going to do this all the way around and it'll half your stitches again. Okay, you should now have half the number of the previous stitches. Now you're going to do the drawstring cast off part. This is where you're going to send your tail through all the stitches, and I'm going to keep it a little long. Okay, and what you're going to do is you're going to find the next stitch and you're going to send the tail through it. You're going to take it off. So you're going to send that tail through all the remaining stitches. Okay. And then you're going to drawstring it together. And there is your double decrease drawstring cast off. And if you don't like those spaces in there, you can fix that. Okay. I find they don't tend to show when you're wearing the hat. I'm going to shove the working yarn into the inside of the hat. Flip it inside out. And if you want to fix that problem, you're going to need a needle. So tighten it up as much as you want it. Then I like to send one section through to make sure that that first section stays snug for me. So send it through and then send the needle through that loop. And tighten that way. Okay, now if you want to close up those sections a little bit more, what you're going to do is you're going to weave in and out when you go to weave in and out again, you pick up and make sure you do the opposite. So I went under that one, I'm going to go over that one now. So you're going to go in and do a light weave, the opposite of what you just did. Okay. Now to complete it, I'm going to go in the edges of the weave that you just made. You're going to go send the needle through that, and then the last stitch that you see here, take it through the weave, take it up through there, and it's a real light move. Take it up through there. And through there. Through the woven section, up through that stitch. Now this is only if that really bugged you. And you can see it stayed nice and smooth. You didn't see what exactly you just did on the other side. Now that you've done that, and closed up your holes if you didn't like what it looked like, go ahead and tie it off. Okay, and that is your flat cap, as you can see. Now, I personally prefer to tack down my front. And what I like to do is turn it inside out like this and tack it on those very corners, so when it comes out it never lifts up. That's entirely up to you.